today, I wanted to focus on the idea of the infinite, and intellectually we find that difficult. Obviously, how can a rational mind have any notion of something that has no boundaries, no limits, it can't really be quantified in the normal way? But that's okay, because even if your intellect doesn't understand it and struggles with that kind of concept, on the deeper levels, of course, it's a norm within you. It's a normal idea. Your real self, your higher self, your spiritual self fully understands that idea and knows that in truth there is no limit to the way in which you as a conscious individual entity can function. The limits are purely based upon our conditioning and our belief systems and our experience in this density, of the material life over generations and thousands and thousands, well, millions of years really. But when we meditate, or when we aspire to higher connections in ourselves, we begin to allow that switch over from trying to manage everything on the outside through our intellects and our logical minds. We begin to accept the deeper and greater possibilities in ourselves. And there's a kind of switch over point. In the body, it takes place between the solar plexus and the heart center. In the energy body, between the solar plexus and the heart center. And in another sense, it occurs in the switch over from the intellect managing everything and the sort of logical structured mind gradually surrendering through the subconscious into your soul, and ultimately in this connection with your spirit. We use the word spirit, I think, sometimes inappropriately, because everything is spirit. It's the kind of all-pervading force of being, or aspect of being. But we surrender to that vibration more and more when we meditate and when we reflect upon the whole idea of letting go of being outer managed and outer influenced and outer controlled, and surrendering to this deeper, infinite, wise, loving, creative vastness of unlimited possibility in the self. Is quite exciting, really. And whenever I get a piece of information, it can be about what's going on politically, globally, in all sorts of difficult and horrible ways. When we, all of us, receive that kind of information, it initially has a boxing in effect, because it suggests that there are things going on in our outer world over which we can have no control, and around which we can have no influence whatsoever. And it's simply not true. But of course, we're conditioned to believe that intellectually, and the only way we can actually rise above that is through processes of meditative experience and connecting with the deeper, more intangible, wonderful, expansive nature of being. And the more we do that, the more we realize, hey, there's something amazing that I can connect within me, and through that there are no limits, that there are no constraints, that there are no boundaries, because everything that is actually is working through me and in me. And it's a very simple idea in many respects, but it's also a challenging one, because we have so much conditioning through our intellect that takes us in the other direction, rationalizes it all and says, well, it's a lovely idea, it's nice for children and in fairy tales, but it's not the reality. Well, I'm afraid if you want to accept that, that's fine, and you go with that. But what I was trying to do in a little bit this morning, and I hope it some way, but the language didn't get in the way too much, because the language itself can get in the way when you're guiding people, Um, it was to just remind you of that connection in you of power and energy, that you're not powerless, to know that actually the infinite availability of power and energy is you. It's in each one of us. It's there. To reconnect with the truth and the frequency of unlimited love and kindness, generosity, understanding. I've been thinking a lot in the last week about empathy and sympathy and the difference between the two things. It's actually quite a subtle notion in a way. But empathy really is about understanding. Sympathy is more to do with, I know what's going on, and I know what it's like. Empathy is more detached, not cold. It's very warm, but it's like a cuddling of the person, but not a suffocating of them or judging them or telling them what's going on. It's like a big, gentle, open-armed cuddle that says, I understand. I might not agree. I might not have experienced it personally in that sense, but I understand where you are. And we need a world full of loving empathy and openness, because that's the way forward. And for me, it's the way of healing. And that capacity for empathy, for love, is infinite. And then the other aspect I touched upon a little bit was the creativity. That creation is always repeating itself through you and I, every moment. Creation. If we believe in the creation, that things were created in some way, out of nothingness or out of the void, then came creation. That process is perpetual. It's a perpetual motion. Creativity, creation, manifestation is going on all the time in all the planes and all the levels of possibility. And that creation and creativity is infinite and unlimited, and it exists in you. It's what you are. And I thought it was good to at least reflect and meditate upon that connection, and that the infinite, the wholeness, the eternity of life is always available through you and I and each one of us. And to me, it's such an important notion. There was a wonderful book. I say a wonderful book. I haven't read it for a long time. But when I was probably in the early 1980s, I think, I came across a whole plethora of books. And in those days, the mind, body, spirit publishing was nothing like it became. If you wanted to find a spiritual book about anything slightly esoteric, it was usually on a bottom shelf in the corner of a bookshop, covered in dust, and published about 1926. And I remember searching around and finding some interesting books, and one of them was by a gentleman with a splendid name, Ralph Waldo Trine, American guy, and he wrote a book called In Tune with the Infinite. And I think you can still get it. I've got two copies, actually. I've got an old copy and one I got somewhere around 1980, I think. But it's a wonderful book, but I love the title. The title is, I think, supreme. In Tune with the Infinite. In Tune with the Infinite. And I think that's what's beckoning us at the moment, is to be in tune with the infinite and the unlimited, and to remember that whatever seems to happen in the outer world that denies that places limits, boundaries, that seems to take power away, that places fear in consciousness instead of love, that denies creativity and imagination beyond the boundaries and limits, and any of those things that crop up in our lives that seem to mitigate against those truths. It's important. I find it important to remember, hey, Paul, you have the infinite at your disposal here, and you don't have to surrender to some outer influence that denies that truth and that possibility in you. And it requires vigilance. It requires vigilance, and we all have our moments of being more vigilant and our times of being less vigilant, I think. But it requires a vigilance to spot when it's happening to us. And it's not a question of denying. I often say this, denying what's happening in the outer world. It's not about that. It's not about denying what's going on in the game out here. I've started to try and play chess again, because chess is a great reminder that, you know, this is what life is about. Life is about a game of chess. It's about this sort of process. And we have to remember that it is a game. It might seem a very cruel, harsh game at times, but it is. And we have to come out of it and work through the infinite as much as we can in ourselves to be the catalyst for change, for renewal, for healing, for all the rest of it. And I'm passionate about that. And the older I get, I think the more passionate I feel about it. And I'll do whatever I can while I'm still in this mortal fleshly coil. I will do what I can to continue encouraging people in that thinking and that understanding, because it's where we are. And it's not about denying what we witness, but it's about affirming what is true and connecting with what is magnificent and infinite in the self. And that is why I did that meditation in that way this morning, and I hope it was helpful in that sense. If you can get a copy of In Tune with the Infinite, I think you'd find it a nice little book. It may well still be in print. I don't know if anybody knows. It might be, but I think you would find it a nice little read. And I certainly was one of my early books of thinking, yes, this is how it works. Yes, this is what's really true. The sense of a weight being lifted, you know. Yes, of course, this is the truth. We can be freer than we think, you know. And I remember those wonderful moments of realization in the late 70s, early 80s for me. They were quite wonderful, and important on this journey of discovery. Is there anything anyone wants to ask or suggest or say? Hello, Hilary. Can you unmute yourself, sweetheart?
Hello, everyone. Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, just as a follow-on, really. You know, I'm sort of in charge of running a small community, and normally I feel it's my job, or partly my job, to kind of try and keep a balance and harmony with the people here. More recently, I've had a lot of anger thrown at me, and I'm wondering how to deal with it. I usually look and consider that I'm being shown to look at, you know, anger within myself. Mm-hmm. But in this situation, I find it very difficult to, you know, I'm willing to take it on board, but I've experienced quite a lot of anger in the past, and most people who observe it think that I should be lashing back. Well, I don't feel that is the right behavior, but I've just sent love, and I can't see what else I can do. I've examined myself. Okay.
Look, first thing is, don't get angry about being angry. That's the first thing. Don't get angry about being angry. I often go on about it, but you know, I'm a Cockney by birth, and Cockneys were always getting angry about stuff. They have many good reasons to be angry, really, after the way they were treated in Victorian times. But first of all, don't be angry being angry. I always watch for that. If you think, I'm getting angry because I should know better than this, and I should know how to clear this. After all, I've read all the books and done all the courses. I should be on such a high level. I should be floating with the angels. Now, don't worry about it, kid. We're still responding to what's going on out here. And the infinite occasionally has a little sleep, and you know, like Gurdjieff's soul sleep, I think it had a bit of a kip. Don't be angry with yourself for being angry. That's the first thing. Seek not to be frustrated with it. And I'm going to make a suggestion here. You might think it's a bit stupid, but you've got quite a bit of land where you live, haven't you? Mm-hmm. Right. Is there a little private corner where you can go and stamp your feet and scream and shout?
The problem is I don't feel anger. So are you saying I should express anger in this situation?
Well, I'm saying have a little jump up and down. Have a little dance.
Yes. Yeah. Lovely.
put on something you like to dance to, and because that will release some of that. Because you've got to remember that what anger is, it's energy traveling up the spine in the physical kundalini. It comes up from the base, and it comes up too quick. So, you know.
The problem is I'm not feeling the anger. That's my problem.
It doesn't matter whether you feel it or not.
Okay, okay. All right.
If you know it's there,
okay.
That's even if your sensory mechanism is not giving you the signals in a way you would like. If you know it's there, then it's there. Okay. Yeah. If you've got a notion of it, it's there.
Well, if something is coming at me from the outside, then it must be within me. Is that correct?
Well, I'm attracting it. You know, my opinion is that there's nothing out there anyway. It's
okay. Yeah.
Only us.
Sure.
So the other thing to do is simply the quick method is to use loving and blessing.
Yeah, and that's what I've been doing.
And just keep doing it, and don't worry if it takes you 6 months to get there, because I've often found with something that is quite a strong sort of event that I get angry or upset about, it can be 5-6 months of, as soon as I think of it, or every day. What I do, if I've got a really big problem, I like to have what I call a letting go tea break in the afternoon, and 4 o'clock's a good time, and I make a cup of tea, and then if there's a particular issue or two, I literally then spend about 10 minutes, 15 minutes just running through blessing, loving, forgiving, you know, asking to be free, asking to let go, you know, making the request. And I make it into a little, you can do it with a cup of tea. You don't have to go into a deep transcendental meditation. You're just sending an instruction or asking within yourself and affirming a higher frequency, and be patient with yourself. And another good thing that can help is to all of the things that happen to us now and in this life have an echo and a resonance with things that have happened to us in the past, in this lifetime, but in other lifetimes. And this is why sometimes clearing stuff that makes us angry and forget that we're the infinite seems to be a bit of a slog, because it's such a complex of memories that produces these events through the people around us in whatever way. And there's one simple thing you can try is to take a bit of time and go through your life in little windows, like from 0 to 11 or something, and 11 to 25. Those of you that are younger won't find this so arduous, but go through your life in little windows. Just have a look at it and think of the main events in it that informed you, that shaped you. You know, think of the main events, and particularly the ones that you found difficult, and just write them down and see what they taught you. You know, you might not get an amazing 20-page insight, but just go through the little windows of your life, you know, teens, adolescence, all this stuff. Think of the events that really stand out for you, and particularly the ones that were difficult, but what they taught you, what they said to you. And do that. I mean, you could spend a bit of time doing that, you know, maybe in little patches. And then you become authentic. You think of your wonderful meta heart here. And then you write the future that you would love to see. The future that actually, you know, the story that you're going to write the story for you now, and what it's going to be like, and how it's going to be. And try writing that story, and you might find that helps, because when we do the writing of our past and what we've learned from it, it actually alters the activity in the brain. I mean, this is a fact, and it starts to create new neural pathways and things. So there's a real effect in that you know, of exploring and understanding, and it's a letting go process, just doing the writing. And then you can write a beautiful story. You know, Hillary, this is me now being, and you know, what is out there, and I will create in my story what I would love to see, and you know, that's worth a try. But certainly there's a few ideas. But have a dance. Dancing's really good. It doesn't have to be like Strictly Ballroom or something, whatever it's called.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Anything else Emma, I'd like to ask? Any things about what's going on or whatever? Jeanette?
Paul, really, really simple question. When from the exercise, when you were coming to the head and the imagination and creativity, can you remember the phrases you were using about connecting to the universe?
Basically, what I did the three chunks. From up to the solar plexus, you have infinite power, infinite energy. There's no limit, and it has a particular association with that part of the energy body. Then I went from I said the heart. It's really from the sternum up through to the top of the chest, incorporating the meta heart, and we simply connected with the idea of the infinite in terms of love, understanding, compassion, kindness. Infinite, unlimited, eternal. There's no boundary to it. And then I spoke of the area from the throat up to the top of the head, and the gist of it was to do with unlimited creativity and imagination, because the creation of life is working through you all the time. It's expressing itself all the time. So that's basically what I did. I can't remember the exact language I used. Anybody else want to ask anything? Are you waving, Ruthie, in Dublin there?
You mentioned something the other day about an issue with the throat and the chin, and for some reason I couldn't hear you, and I just wondered what you said. That was something that was going on in humanity at the moment.
That's right. That's right.
I just wondered, could you say something about that? Because I think I feel that sometimes.
Yeah, it's a very common problem in human beings. It's to do with the energy centers around the chin and the throat. We've got kind of two throat centers really, and vibrationally they connect with the creative intelligence expressed largely through sound and in us. And so they are very much concerned with how we express ourselves, how we communicate verbally, but also in other ways too, because it's to do with the energy of it. And so this space here between the throat and the chin is so important in an open, flowing, truthful communication. Now, one of the problems that humanity has is that we communicate a lot. I mean, we've got communication flying around the place, but it's very managed communication in some ways, very controlled. And it's, dare I suggest, that sometimes it's economical with the truth, the way that we communicate. If you want, sometimes it's amazing how disarming young children are, isn't it? Because they'll tell you like it is, It's like my granddaughter saying things to me, that are not said in any aggressive or vicious way. My oldest granddaughter, but they sometimes make me sort of focus very sharply, and it can be anything. It can be something quite innocent, in that that they say. But there's a kind of honesty, and very often in the development of children, we persuade them that there's something called discretion, and be discreet, and that then becomes, well, you better not tell them everything, just tell them a bit. They don't need to. They need to know, isn't it? The need to know basis. And we grow into that gradually over a period of time until we become, if we're not careful, we become downright dishonest. And so human beings have a problem in this area because we are not truthful enough. We, for all kinds of reasons, our personality is trapped in the illusion of what one could say is deliberate, sometimes, obfuscation and deceit. And I think it's amazing that there was an election yesterday in parts of Britain. I don't know, wasn't it a local in parts of Britain? I know not in some of your places. And you know, if you want to see speaking with forked tongue, as they used to say in the movies and so on, then you don't have to look much further than politics, Ralph. And so this struggle for the expressing ourselves truthfully. Now, that doesn't mean we walk around saying things that we know are going to offend and hurt people. I don't mean that. But it goes beyond that. There's a definite tendency to not only not say things in a clear and open and sympathetic and loving way, but we sometimes deliberately say something that we know is going to mislead and deceive and whatever. And it's seen as being clever by many people to do that. You know? And so this is a human problem. In some parts of humanity, it's more of a problem than others. But certainly in the West, from what I've observed, most people have a problem in this space between the mouth and the chin and the top of the chest, in that energetic space. How do we deal with it? We deal with it by seeking to be heart-based in what we say. And I said in one of my books, it's like imagining that you've got lips in your heart, you know, and that you speak through your heart. And if we do that, we will always find a way of expressing ourselves, our ideas and our feelings in a way that's creative and based upon a loving, compassionate understanding of any situation. And if we do that, if we combine those kind of vibrations of power, love and understanding and creative expression, then we would loosen this space up. But it's a huge area, and I found it very interesting with the virus, you know, the COVID thing, that it went, the initial strains of it went right into the lungs and around the heart, you know, and into the respiratory, deeper respiratory area. And as it mutated, it settled much more in the upper respiratory area tract, which of course is the throat, the nose, and the mouth. And that doesn't surprise me at all, you know, because we've got some problems in our heart and lungs, you know, we have that, but in that vibration and in our chest. But the real problem we have is here. It's between the throat and the nose, and it's not surprising that it was going to settle energetically much more to be a condition of that part. Of course, it can affect, you know, the whole body, but it didn't surprise me that it evolved just as I thought it would. And you know, that's where it is. This is where most of the condition problems come for us, isn't it? And there we are. And that's the good old throat and the nose and the mouth. And we can do it by singing. We can alleviate it rather by singing, but also by imagining our lips work through our heart, you know, that we speak through our hearts, we communicate through our hearts, and by doing simple things like, you know, looking for the good things in life, looking for the blessings, seeking to understand and accept the vibration of everything that comes to us that is good, that is lovely, that is wonderful. Whatsoever things are of good report, think on these things, you know. And it may seem like Mickey Mouse, fairyland, namby-pamby. I can tell you that is where the power lies in us, in those processes, in that understanding, in that connection with the infinite, in all the layers of ourselves. That's where the glory and the power is. That's where the strength is. And to tell someone you love them, to tell someone you care about them, to tell someone that you value them, that is such a wonderful thing to do. It doesn't get any more powerful than that, does it? Eh? And that opens you to the infinite possibility of love, of blessing, of connecting, of thinking, of powerfulness. It's all there, folks. It's all there.